I don't mind miming at all. That's just an inherent part of the music industry. Sometimes it's the only way you can produce things. Where the problem starts for me is when you go out live and start disappointing everyone because you were pretending to have some kind of skill that you don't have. Two things I want to do. I want to quickly mention that my new book is out. And then I want to react not to a random video about this guitar drama, but another video I saw the first like 50 minutes. I thought, oh, this is interesting. And they were talking about subjects that also relate to my channel or just to being a guitar YouTuber in general. I thought, oh, that's interesting. I have thoughts about that also because of my background coming from classical music and other music scenes. So let's start with the book. So I just finished my Van-Hemert System Volume 6. And that is a book that is just follows the same methodology as all my other books. So the Van-Hemert system, which is a whole system of learning and practicing, is just not just a way of teaching jazz guitar, but also a way of practicing. And it got bigger and bigger. Right now there's a whole community aspect with Discord, with lots of guitar players, almost 900 by this point, and you can post your own streams, for example, but you can also send me videos doing exercises in one of those books. And once you do the exercise to a satisfactory level and to receive feedback from me also to improve at it, you gain a level and a title in Discord, just like with chess. And you might think, oh, that's a weird system. Why is that necessary to learn guitar? Well, it's not necessary, but it's a lot of fun. It keeps you motivating. And once you unlock a level, you also unlock kind of loot, or reward. And once you hit the highest level, you can pick another one of my books for free. So it's not just, you're not doing it for nothing. Well, you're doing it, of course, to improve your guitar skills, but it's also to get another book. And then you can continue the game and you can get points, and there's a leaderboard, and there's lots of people doing that, and it's a lot of fun, and it has increased a lot of people's motivation to practice. And that's what it's all about, of course, because practicing is the hard part about learning to play, well, any instrument. But especially with jazz, practicing can be very frustrating. And I cannot take away the frustration, but I can make it a little bit more fun by attaching it to a game. So all my books have this aspect of gamification. And I've written 6 of those books. Now, book 1, there's no community aspect yet because I didn't think of it back then. But from book 2 on, that aspect is there. So the question always is like, do I have to do the books in order? No, you don't have to. Although book 2 is the easiest book to level in, I think. If you want to reach the highest level, then book 2 is the easiest. But the other books are more thematic. So book 2 is kind of general jazz vocabulary. It's a good start. But let's say, no, I want to really dive into the old school Django, then it's book 3. So now I want to dive into bebop. That's my thing. No Django. Well, that's book 4. And maybe you're not interested in playing solo. You just want to learn nice chords and are interested in the way that Django was comping other solo players. Well, that's book 5. Or maybe you are not interested in gypsy jazz or bebop. You're more interested in more contemporary solo playing. Well, that's book 6, which I just finished, and it's all post-bop vocabulary. And it's not vocabulary I came up with myself. It's vocabulary based on hundreds of transcriptions of contemporary guitar players. And then I looked at the similarities. I took lines, I codified them, I organized them. And now you have this book. And once you complete the book, you will have gained a lot of post-bop vocabulary. And then you might also think, you know what? I'm interested in Django, but not in the old stuff. I'm more interested in new stuff. Well, that will be book 7, which I will write later this year. Right now, there is a discount. It's a launch discount. So you can get any of my books, including a combination of my books, with a 15% discount, with a discount coupon, which you have to fill in at checkout. And the coupon is PostBop15. Yes, PostBop15. I'll check that, and I'll put the coupon code in the description and also in a pinned comment. The discount will be valid until I come back from the Gizmograph Gypsy Jazz Weekend, which is a weekend in Germany, in Stuttgart, and I will be teaching there together with Gizmo Graaf, of course, and the trio, and also Hona Winterstein. And I will be there teaching for 2 days. It's going to be a lot of fun. I will put a link to that also in the description. I think it's pretty full, but perhaps there's still some room left. Once I get back, the discount will stop. Okay, so that's about my new book. Now let's get to this Giacomo Tura drama. I don't know if you've heard about it, but if you are a guitar YouTuber, you will have been recommended, or if you're interested in guitar on YouTube, let's say like this, you will have been recommended many videos about that, and I've watched a bunch because I was a fan of Giacomo Tura myself. Right? I've never seen him play, but I watched his videos on Instagram. I've showed other people. Now I was aware that he was miming the playing there because it was a little bit too perfect, and I'll be getting into that as well because I've done that too. Not so much for my own channel, but I have done it for other commercial projects. It's very normal to be miming music when you play on television, for example. But I'll get into that. So I didn't mind the miming, but I was on the impression that he was able to play like that. Now, apparently he wasn't, and it got even worse. He stole all of those things. I'm going to comment on that, all of that, but I'm not going to comment on a video, on any video. I'm going to comment on the video made by Scott's Bass Lessons, which is a big channel on YouTube, more than 1 million subscribers. And he has a conversation with a colleague of him talking about this, and they make some very interesting points, which directly relates to my practice as a performer, as a guitar player, as a YouTuber, all three of those things actually. And I wanted to react to it. Now the problem is, depends on your perspective, it's a very long video itself. It's like 15 minutes. So what I'm going to try to do is not react too much in the beginning, because in the beginning they're just, and that's the part I saw like 20 minutes of it. In the beginning, first 5-10 minutes, they're mainly talking about what happened, like giving the viewer information. I won't be interrupting too much in that part because that is just the facts of the case. But a little later on, I'll start reacting. Let's see how long this video is going to be. I have no idea. So let's switch to that video. And the video is called, okay, let's talk about Giacomo Tura. And let's start. And let me know, Andre, for example, if you or anyone else is watching. Because I'm streaming for YouTube, I'm streaming this live in my Discord. If the audio volume of the video is too loud or too low compared to my voice. Let's go.
Guys, how's it going? So we're going to be talking about something today that, honestly, the more Ian and I talk about it, the more confused I feel. There's no end to the amount of confusion I feel about this. It's just going down and getting more confused and more confused. So if you wanted to rock up and you're like, I'm feeling confused about this situation, Ian and Scott are going to solve it for me. Hey, stop right there. We are not. We just might murky the waters even more because it's actually like a complex situation. But what I will say is there's a lot of people that have been talking about this situation over the last 2 or 3 weeks who have had a strong opinion on it and didn't sound very confused about it. So maybe we're just showing the other side of it, you know?
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah, like maybe that's another way.
That's true, right? Many people have made videos. The biggest music YouTubers have made videos. Rick Beato, of course, and many others. And I've watched a bunch of them.
It's sort of like putting it. Obviously, I'm talking about the situation that happened with Giacomo Tura, the guitar player, Instagram guitar player. Let me give you the full sort of like 30 to 60 second pitch on
Let's
what
have a
happened,
recap, dude. Let's have a recap.
A recap. And I also will say right off the bat that this video actually isn't just about him. I think there's been enough content made about Giacomo, and what we want to do is explore some of the other aspects of this and downstream effects.
And that's also what I'm mostly interested in. It's the other aspects of this, because he mimed, that I think was widely known, by many musicians, and I didn't mind that. I mean, that's so many people do that. I've done that, like I said, not so much on my own channel, although I get into how I filmed a lot of the videos of my own channel when I was making a video every week in which I was playing a brand new solo that I described from someone. Of course, with giving them all the credits, I was teaching the solo. But of course, it was impossible for me as well to just play that perfectly all the time. So I had my ways to do that. And I explained that earlier in videos, by the way. But so I'm not so much interested in that aspect of it. But we'll see what happens.
Of what come from other creators doing this. Because everybody's kind of like pointing at him.
And what is this? What's this that you're referring to?
Okay, so it's complex. Let me give you the 30 to 60 second download, and then we're going to talk about the 3 specific threads that come out of this. So, a few weeks ago, actually, let me just say it again. There is a guitar player, an Italian guitar player called Giacomo Tura, who his main platform is Instagram. I think he's followed by about 700,000 or 800,000 700,000 or 800,000 followers over there on Instagram, maybe a few 100,000 here on YouTube, although he has deleted his channel here on YouTube recently off the back of these shenanigans that went on. Now, so what you would say about Giacomo, just as a sort of like looking at that from a 10,000 foot view, is he's like one of the top social media, Instagram-esque guitar players in the world, right?
Right.
For sure.
Go. There's in the top 10 probably, maybe even in the top 5, maybe even in the top 3 of people that have, I don't know. Let me know in the comments, people.
Well, sort of like you mean like a meteoric rise in popularity on a short form
off the
platform?
back of social media. Yeah.
And let me just say that a lot of the stuff he posted sounded really good. Right? Like there was really cool stuff, really great beats, really cool solos. Great musical miniatures. Now, as we learn now, he didn't really come up with all of those things himself, but just as on its own, it was really very cool to watch. It sounded really good, and it looked great also.
Off the back of social media, yeah. So
Sure.
I'm sure that Steve Vai might have like many more followers than that, but Steve Vai's been at this for decades, and also
Giacomo's like mid-20s, right?
He's like, I think like mid to late 20s, and he's social media centric. He was born out of that medium. I think that's
like many guitar players nowadays.
So
of course,
that's who Giacomo is.
I mean, they make it seem a little bit like that is unusual, but nowadays that's not unusual. Even in the music styles that I play in, like gypsy jazz. Most people that are really famous now, like the young people, it was because of social media. And a good example of it is Emmett Cohen. Of course, he was already famous before, mostly like in New York, maybe a little bit in the States, but like worldwide fame came with his Emmett's Place, which started in the pandemic, with the highest level quality of jazz. So it has nothing to do with the quality of playing that was already there, but like the fame was because of YouTube. And in gypsy jazz, same thing happens, nowadays. Like lots of the young players, they get famous on YouTube or nowadays maybe Instagram first, and then they start playing live.
Whatever. And Danny Sapko, shout out to Danny, local Yorkshire lad.
Yes.
Danny Sapko did an expose video. I don't know what they're actually called, these videos, but like, I don't know.
That's a very good video, by the way. He shows exactly what happened there. It's unfortunate for Giacomo, but I guess it's deserved. But Dennis Sepko did a lot of research, and he showed exactly what happened there and why it is so wrong.
Old schoolers like myself would call it an expose video.
Yeah.
And the expose video basically showed that Giacomo Tura was doing 3 kind of things. And I talked about these 3 threads. And there's 3 threads. The first one is that he was transcribing people's lines, other guitar players' lines, other people's improvisations, other people's solos. He was transcribing them and then he was using them in his videos as if he had created them and not correctly.
When I heard them say this first time, I was like, oh yeah, but I did it as well. Like many people have done that. But the difference is then when I was doing that, that would be the first thing I said. This is a solo by Django or something, or this is a solo by Peter Bernstein, and I've been studying it myself, and let me show you what I learned, right? So it's not, I never pretended that I was the one making the solos, but I also would realize it would be impossible for me to be the one to do that. It's just a little bit too good, right? If you play a Peter Bernstein solo, like every knowledgeable jazz guitar player will realize this is probably not your solo. This must be a solo by one of the greats. Well, maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe some people wouldn't realize that. But I would realize that myself if I would see someone else do it. So it would be very hard for me to pretend like it was my own solo.
Crediting the individuals who had originally played them, right? And in most cases, the people that originally created those improvisations and solos were a lot lesser known. In fact, in all cases, because Giacomo is so well known, right?
That's right.
But a lot less known. Like they might have like 1,000 or 2,000 followers. Okay, maybe less, right? But like a lot less.
Yeah.
It's worth saying that if you are a guitar player who has, put his, or her, like, at shed hours in, maybe you've been, shedding for a decade or more, right? And you've been sweating, and you see somebody who's actually taken your improvised solo or your solo and they're using it in their video, and you've got like your 1,000 followers and they've got their 700,000, 800,000 followers, and they're playing your ideas. Just think about how that makes you feel, right? Especially when, it's okay because you're credited properly, right?
That is terrible. But it's also important, I think, to maybe realize that this had been happening even before YouTube. People like stealing other people's arrangements and then pretending like it's their own, or like even selling them, or doing whole concert tours. I mean, it happened to me many times as well. Unfortunately, people stealing my arrangements that I made for a group and then selling them to another group. And it happened. I caught it a couple of times. It even happened in the Concertgebouw, which is the biggest hall here, where I was randomly looking through their brochure and I saw a famous string quartet playing some unusual pieces that I arranged for string quartet. They were not really arranged for string quartet originally. I was like, wow, that's a coincidence. Somebody else arranged that as well. And when I started calling the Concertgebouw and asking for program details, and they found out the arranger, they called me back and said, well, yeah, it's a guy called christiaan-van-hemert. So that's me. Like, I've never sold these arrangements to the string quartet, right? So that's the times I caught it, but probably happened much more, but I didn't know about it. Nowadays, it's easier to find out because of YouTube and Instagram probably, but this has been happening for decades. Not to say that it is good, because I felt very bad when it happened, but it's older than just Instagram.
Right, and you're going to get loads of traffic towards your Instagram channel where it's okay. Well, no, it's not okay because there was no credit given, or the credit was buried and not correctly given, right?
Yeah, or the credit was put in afterwards. I think he went back in and dropped in credits after
the fact.
Tons of God, there's all screenshots of him begging people not to release this information. I mean, so he was knowingly doing this, stealing these arrangements, solos, note for note, regurgitating them as his own. And then further, the nastiness goes further, because then he was monetizing these tabs and this stuff on his website as his own thing.
As his own thing. Okay, so there's actually 4 threads then, isn't there?
Yeah.
there's the taking.
Now, I have a Patreon with a lot of tab of the things I transcribed. Now, I wouldn't never sell, like I'm selling this tab as my own, like this is my solo, right? I never done that, but, I transcribe many Django solos, for example, and you can download them by joining my Patreon. It's not the same thing because it's subscription-based, and there's also lots of stuff there that I did create myself, but there has been many years of books with transcription of solos, I don't think you can copyright a solo. I think the main problem here is not so much the monetizing part, although that could be a debate, but it's not giving credit to the original solo player. And I think if you make a video playing the solo of someone else, pretending it's your own, and then selling it, and people buying it from you and say, okay, I'm learning this Giacomo Tuda solo. Now we have a real problem. I think that is not very a moral, ethically all right thing to do, because I would then always point. Let's say people join my Patreon. There's never any doubt, like when I transcribe the solo, who that solo is by. I would mention that person's name all the time, and I would give all the credits to this person. It's just that I transcribed it, which is of course also of course a lot of work, and I would be teaching how to play it. I would teaching the concept and the way that you could use this concept yourself, right? It's more improvisation lessons, which is the normal thing to do in jazz because people have been doing that. That's the way jazz has been taught for decades, right? You say, listen to this Charlie Parker lick or learn this Charlie Parker solo. Jazz solos, improvised solos, it's very hard to copyright that. I wonder if that actually can be done, because if you start doing that, it's a slippery slope, right? Because then I could just go to, let's say there's this one phrase I play and I'm the first one to recognize someone else also playing that phrase. Say, hey, that's my phrase. All right? And they said, no. Say, I got it from another guy. And then I said, well, that guy also got it from me. Now it's like, where's the start of this phrase? That's why it's so difficult to copyright a solo, because a jazz solo is like a language, and the language consists of words and sentences that everybody uses, because if we wouldn't be using that, we wouldn't be playing jazz. So that's why copyrighting a solo, very hard to do. Now, if you play a complete solo by someone else, that is a different thing. But I think the difference there is, are you doing it as a performance and claiming it's your own, or are you tributing the original improviser, right? Because in gypsy jazz, it's very normal to play a Django solo. But I don't think anyone would ever pretend like it's their own solo. It's just that's not the way. That's not the why you do it. You do it to tribute Django.
Yeah, transcribing other people's stuff and taking it as your own, not crediting correctly. There's that part of it. There's the then actually transcribing, like putting written materials out and selling them on your website as your own material.
Yes.
Bad. Now, just to take a pause. Again, this video just isn't about... The reason why we're going through this is to be contextual, because some of you might not have heard about all of these goings on. I'm not going through this to say, bad Giacomo, bad Giacomo, and let's make another video about Giacomo where we sort of everybody sort of publicly crucifies him. I think there's enough videos doing that, but I think it's important that everybody has the context, and then we'll get into all of the confusion, our confusion over how to feel about some of the other things. Okay, again, so the first two threads are taking people's lines, musical ideas, solos, improvisations, and taking them as your own, not crediting correctly. Number two is selling them on your website as your own. Okay, so let's just say that those first two threads, bad. Yeah. No dispute. Everybody understands.
And the main thing is pretending it like it's your own thing. That's the bad thing about it, because taking licks or phrases by someone else and using it as teaching materials is just the way that jazz is taught. Even people that get away from it and say okay, no, I'm teaching more skills. The moment you start making lines within those skills, the chances are very low that that line hasn't also been played by someone else. And that's just a matter of discovering it then by the other player. But that other player obviously is also not the one who came up with it. So that's why the bad part here is about claiming that it's your own thing, that you came up with it, that you improvised it.
We shouldn't do that. Bad Giacomo.
Right. Yes.
Got a stick. Bad Giacomo. Right. Okay. The next ones are more. I think
now
are
it
more
gets
interesting.
This is what I'm interested
in. And I think they're more interesting because more people are doing it. Just to sort of I'm going to put my bench out, right?
Yeah.
They're more interesting because more people are doing it.
Yeah.
The first 2 points, I think that I would like to hope that that's actually sort of like more of an isolated incident, especially of somebody riding that wave.
Yeah.
Wow,
And sort of universally
crazy.
thought of as not good.
Not good. Yeah, not good. Okay, so number 3, 4, the third and fourth thread. Okay, the third thread is that, and some people knew this, but I don't think it was widely understood, is that Giacomo was miming.
Okay.
So remember that.
Obviously, I knew this because it's very easy to tell if somebody's miming. It's just, especially when it's multiple videos. Like when there's never any mistake, when everything is perfect, it's obviously mimed. It's not possible to play that perfectly. And I'm not even talking about like making mistakes with like notes or something. It's just with the way that everything sounded and the timing and everything was just a little bit too good. Now, for me, at least, it didn't really detract from the music. I still think it sounded good, but obviously it was mimed. Also, the way the people were just playing, they were having a little bit too much fun, and not enough concentration. Especially when it was like 4 people in the video, 5 people. Like everybody was playing perfectly everything. The chances of that happening are so low that I don't think it would be possible to build a whole channel on Instagram doing that. Like I don't know how many videos he made, but let's say he made one every week. That'd be such a frustrating process that obviously it was mimed.
This is sort of like somebody that was, but it was like the new Guitar Hero kind of style, right? There's a lot of people that are sort of like, think about he's in his like mid to late 20s, right? Giacomo was on the, if not, maybe he wasn't even on the road to be the next generation Guitar Hero. Maybe he was the next generation Guitar Hero for many people. 800,000 people.
What I want to say about it, even there are, of course, guitar players that are technical marvels that never make a mistake in that realm of guitar playing, like technical mistakes, or very rarely. For instance, Stochelo Rosenberg, in the style that I play, he rarely makes any mistake. It's also the way he plays, right? It's very much inside the chords, and he knows his language. So he would never attempt to do something completely crazy like Birelli, who just takes risk after risk. And usually he succeeds, but sometimes Birelli even makes a mistake. But Stochelo very rarely makes a mistake, and I've seen him play live hundreds of times. But even if you're a player like that, you would sometimes still make a little mistake with a timing thing. Maybe one note is a little bit rushed, or one note is a little bit unarticulated. That even happens to Stochelo. But with Giacomo Tura and those videos, it never happened. So that's already a 100% certainty that someone is miming like that. Also, Randy says, also what we do is more like sampling. We're taking pieces and crediting a new artistic interpretation. Yeah, you're talking about like improvisation. Yeah, just improvisation. Well, but that's the way you look at it. That's the way. That's just about how you look at it. That's the way I look at it as well. But some people, of course, would say, "Well, he's just a licks player or something," right? And then what they mean is that they're playing lick after lick. I think if you're a very good licks player and you are managed to weave them together in a very organic way, then that part of it will disappear and it will start sounding like a natural language, which is what happened with Stochelo. Of course, what Stochelo does all the time, and he's not, I'm mentioning him now because I'm so familiar with his playing, but let's say, 95% of everybody that plays gypsy jazz, let's keep it to gypsy jazz, they're all licks players, including me. And the better you get at it, the more organic it starts sounding. And it's not only licks by someone else, it could also be your own licks. Stochelo has many of his own licks, like phrases that he likes to play. But you will have to get through a stage to get there where you start sounding or sound a little bit copy-paste, where you have this idea and then maybe there's a gap and then you play this other idea and it sounds copy-paste, but you have to go through that stage. Not even only at home, but even in jam sessions or on stage to get to the point where it starts sounding organic.
Or following him, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
right.
But a lot of people didn't know that he was miming. All of them videos are mimed. Okay, so we're going to be getting into that.
I guess the only people that didn't know was like non-musicians. That makes sense. But also maybe musicians that are not familiar with the concept of miming. And that I have encountered a lot. So there is this very famous video on YouTube of... I forgot his name. But it's... Carmignoli, yes. Carmignoli playing the Four Seasons of Vivaldi. And they're playing the third movement of the Winter. That's very fast piece. And it's amazing playing. Right? And it looks great. Everybody's very intense. And there's like hundreds of camera angles from below, from above. Now, to me, it's very obvious that's mimed. I mean, you never see a camera. So it's one camera, and they do it over and over again, and they take different angles. Maybe two cameras, but there's no camera anywhere visible. So how can you take an angle from the back and from the front, from the side, and never see a camera? That's because it's mimed. And they're just miming to their official CD recording. To my surprise, a lot of people didn't realize it was mimed. And then I would show them, it's like, oh, the playing is so great. It's like, but you realize it's mimed. And they said, no, why? And then I explained them about the camera angle. It's like, oh yeah, I never thought about that. So now, did I mind it was mimed? No, I didn't mind because it was a great video. It was fun to watch. I know they can play it live. There's many videos on YouTube where they're playing it live in concerts and it sounds just as great, right? So the miming there is just to create this very awesome video clip, like an MTV or like a music video clip. I don't mind that.
Conversation, because
what does that mean? What does miming mean?
All right, and I've done it many times myself. When I was part of a very commercial orchestra. I wouldn't say the name, but we played many concerts live. But we also had to play on television. Now this was a pretty big orchestra, and we would play in commercial shows. These commercial shows, like talk shows or something, they were not set up to host a big orchestra and get us good sound. So we could either play with crappy sound with the crappy microphones they had and sound engineers that were not used to having an orchestra, or we could just play along to a recording that we made. Of course, we would do the latter one because that would just sound much better and we could all focus on making it look good. And we would be having fun on camera, which is much more important. In fact, it got to the point where we played on television. And we were in a foreign country even. We were playing television, and then there was drums on the track because we were playing with a beat. Those was not real drums, they were like programmed beats. But we didn't have any DJ on stage or any like percussion. And then this director of the TV show said, well, that's kind of weird. You're playing with violins. I was playing violin, but there's no beat. Maybe some of the people in the orchestra could play some percussion. So and they said, we have a conga here and maracas. And I said, are there any volunteers? And I immediately raised my hand because I thought that shit was hilarious. I was going to play a conga, even though there were no congas or maracas on this whole track, right? So they gave me one conga even, and I never played a conga in my life before. And I was just playing on this conga, and a friend of mine was playing maracas. Like, neither of them were on the track. And there was a live audience in this show, right? Live audience. There were no microphones on the stage where we were playing, no microphones at all. And we were playing along with a recording. I was playing the congas. I was having a lot of fun. And to my surprise, even I was surprised that after the show, people from the audience came to us to tell us that we played, that it sounded so good, we played so well. It's like, oh my God, okay. So like people that don't know anything about music, they don't know what a conga sounds like, right? They thought we were playing real, even though there were no microphones. So like miming is a very normal thing in television world, for example. And also on Instagram. If you have to make 3 videos a week or 1 video a week with complicated music, there's probably no time for you to play that to the level that you want to be playing it, or kind of almost forced to be playing it because people now expect it from you, and then you start miming. The thing is then, how are you recording the music? And that is where we get into an area where I have some stronger opinions.
means great point. So you're not playing it live. So you're pressing play on you press record on the camera, you press play on a device that you can hear, and then you mime along.
Yeah.
You pretend to play along. Okay. Yeah. So, and miming has been used for. Adam Neely did a great video. There are a bunch of great videos that you should check out that have been done on this topic.
Charlie Parker mimed. There was this video of Charlie Parker, Coleman Hawkins playing together, and they mimed it. Back then, they didn't have technology also to record it to a level that it would sound good. All those Hollywood movies with the musicals, it's all mimed, of course, right? You hear a whole orchestra, everything else in balance. It's not possible. It's all mimed.
Lots of different people have so many interesting viewpoints on it. To name a few, Adam Neely did a really fantastic one. Yeah. It's super interesting. Rick Beato did one. Yannick and Chelsea did one. All with different opinions. So go watch them all. It's great. And they all had really great opinions. Some of my opinions are definitely not as formulated as theirs, because I'm like more confused about certain things. Again, the first two things, the taking people's lines and selling them on your website, bad. Okay. But the next two, there's definitely there's more grey areas, because miming, for instance, has been done for decades.
Right.
It has been done for decades, and sometimes it was necessary to do, right? Because there would be no sound, or the sound would be so bad that you would do yourself a disservice by not miming.
Decades, right? So people have been doing that now. And let's just go over these next two threads, and then we're going to revert back to talking about miming and stuff like that. But just to put it out there, miming has been done for decades and decades in lots of different ways. Adam Neely again pointed out that in his. But all that to say that a lot of people didn't know that was what was going on with Giacomo. They actually thought he was playing that stuff, and he wasn't playing that stuff. It was mimed. Side note and this is what's killing me and confusing me a lot, like even more about this, is and I did know that Giacomo was miming, because, and we talked about this yesterday, Ian, I think it's because I'm a guitar player and I know what the guitar sound, I know what a guitar does when I play it. And I watched him and I was like, oh, it's miming, right?
Right.
I don't think you have to be a guitar player to realize it was mimed. You just have to be a musician that has been in a situation where you also had to mime. Because then you recognize, okay, they're going for visuals, they're going for the nice vibe, like visual vibe. Then you probably it's mimed. And then you hear it, it's like, oh, this is too perfect. It sounds too much in balance. There's many movies, like also Hollywood movies, and then the actors, they walk into a party, and then there's a band. And it just sounds so good, the band. It's perfectly in balance, and then, it gets louder, and then it gets... Of course, it's mimed. Usually, it's not even real musicians. It's like some actors holding an instrument for the first time. Another good example is like when an actor in a movie says, sing something, and they take a microphone, and they sing, and it sounds perfect, and it's in tune, and then all of a sudden, there's a whole orchestra accompanying them. Yeah, that's all mimed. Are there people that don't realize that? I wonder. But if you watch like movie about Ray Charles, who was playing the actor there? I forgot. But yeah, when he was singing the Ray Charles tunes, that was mimed. Maybe, I think he recorded the stuff in the studio, but like in the scene, it was mimed. You don't want to be shooting a scene 100 times because you make one little mistake. It's more about the visuals.
But since all of these shenanigans have been outed, now when I go on it, we were texting each other last night, many times last night, just sending each other clips of people miming on Instagram. Just
you think this is mimed too?
Another one.
Let me talk about that with me. So. Maybe they're getting to it more, but I think this is a good moment. So I used to make a video once a week in which would play a solo that I would teach. Django solo, Peter Bernstein solo, Pasquale Grass solo, whoever. Every week. So I had to transcribe the solo, then practice the solo, and perform it. Now, I wasn't miming, it never occurred to me to do it in the way that I think they're going to talk about it, or like the way that Giacomo was recording at half speed or something like that. That never even occurred to me to do it like that. But here's the way how I did it, because if you watch those videos, I also never seem to make a mistake. That's because I did it like this. I would put one camera. So here we go, because you see 3 camera angles. With one camera and record from the front like 3 times. Then I would put the camera on the angle to the right side and film my left hand and record that 3 times. Usually I would do 3 times. And then I would record from the other side, from the right side, from the other side from my right hand and record that 3 times. So I would have 9 takes, right? Then I would put all the the audio files of those takes under each other, and they would be all in sync, of course, because it was a jazz solo with a backing track. The backing track I pre-recorded. And then I would comp. So comping, I'm not talking about accompanying, but comping is just a usual technique in vocal production, but not only vocals. I'll get into it more. And I would take the best take was take number 2 from the right side. I would take that as my final take, but then if I would make a mistake, I would look at the other takes to see if I would play it correctly there. And usually with 9 takes, I could make one track in which there were no mistakes, or almost no mistakes. Then maybe if there was a little mistake somewhere, I could repair it, right? Just record that little piece again, which is a completely normal thing to do in music production. Okay. Makes sense. So then I would have a perfect track. And this would be a very efficient way of doing it. I wouldn't have to record half speed or like record bar by bar or something. I would still do a complete take. So it would take me like maybe this whole process from setting up the cameras, recording it, and making this comping edit, maybe it would take me 2 hours, 3 hours. Probably goes to 2. And then it was time for the cameras. Now, of course, I wouldn't like cut cameras every time I would cut to would cut in the audio. I wouldn't even remember what it was. I would just cut the cameras for interesting visuals, and most of it would be in sync anyway. Even though the audio you would be hearing would be from another take, because I was playing a not improvised solo. I was playing a solo. You wouldn't even notice. Now sometimes it would be a little bit out of sync because I played a little bit differently. Then I would search for the correct camera angle. I would find it, I would put it in. But oftentimes you would see me play and the audio you would be hearing would be probably from another take. And I also explained this in earlier solos, in earlier videos, because people would ask me about like, how are you recording with 3 cameras? How many cameras do you have? So, no, I'll be recording with 1 camera. This is the way I would create these perfect recordings. Was I able to play the solo perfectly? Maybe not at that time. Again, I had to learn a whole solo every week. I would have to transcribe it, memorize it. Sometimes it was from a player that I was not familiar with. Yes, I would be able to play that solo perfectly with probably a little bit more practice. But in that circumstance where you have to make a video and it has to be efficient, that was just not the efficient thing for me to do, to learn it to the level that you could play perfectly, then also do that the moment that you turn on the camera. That is a whole other layer of pressure. You could try it. Not efficient. So I don't think I've ever done that. Now, there's many videos where I talk live to the camera, right, and improvise stuff. Well, that is all real, of course. When I started improvising, I couldn't do that. It was only possible if I would be teaching a Django solo, for example. And then I would do that. And I didn't have any problems with it, and I still don't. That's just the way that most people do it. In classical music, this is completely normal. When you make a classical, record the Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto, there's a music director, and you do like 4 takes of a movement, and the music director would make notes while you're recording and say, okay, they would come over the speaker, say, we have everything except for bar 16 to 19. I don't have a good take. Could you, the orchestra and so on, could you play bar 15 to 20, and then a couple of times until we have a good take. And then they would have the orchestra play it. Maybe they would get the tempo or something to the conductor. And that's how you would get a perfect recording of a classical piece. And it's not only using classical. In jazz, many times, people would have to record an improvised solo, and they would not just record one solo, but they maybe record 4 solos, and then take the best solo. And if there was a part of that solo that was not great, they search in the other takes if there was something they could take, Comping a jazz solo has also been done a lot. I have done that. I've seen other people do it. It's just the way you record music.
I know. It's actually happening
and the
way more
crazy
than
thing for me, I'll put my hand up and say, like, I wasn't sure. I'm never going to be the guy that's going to go, hey, to try to call somebody out on like miming, because I'm not exactly sure, and I actually don't pay that close of attention. So I've seen Giacomo videos come up
until now.
Well, right. But yeah, like I would always sort of give.
I would assume that most stuff is mimed on Instagram, and I don't care. Because I would also assume that the person that's doing it is only doing it for the reasons I just said. Like, it's more efficient to do it that way. It's about the visual. It's about presenting this piece of music that you wrote or that you want to teach. Right? It's not because to hide your bad skill. So I would then check to see if I can. Let's say I would doubt if this person can actually play. Then I would see, can I find some live recording? So. In my case, there's so many videos of me live streaming and playing, and you can see exactly how I can play, and you can be the judge if you think that's good enough to play a Django solo. I think it is. For me, playing a Django solo is not difficult. My technique is, for not every Django solo, but most Django solos, my technique is better than what is needed to play that. Right? So, I'm not going to say I would be able to play a Django solo perfectly every time, but it's certainly good enough to play it perfectly under the right circumstances.
Give these folks like benefit of the doubt. You know why? Because I'm focused on my shit. Like I'm busy. You're busy. Like I wasn't like going through the internet with this rage of like, oh, let's out the people. So I kind of was like, oh wow. But yeah, now that I'm it's on my radar, I'm checking stuff out, and I'm like, whoa.
Well, that's what's happening to me now. Yeah, I'm like seeing all of these videos.
I'm surprised. I'm so surprised that they are surprised by it, because I would think they would realize like most stuff is mimed, but okay.
Like, oh shit.
I know.
That's mimed. That's mimed.
Let's come back to this, but what's your fourth thing?
Let's come back to it, because I don't know how I feel about it, because I think it's very platform centric. Like for me, just to say it kind of feels okay in certain situations and not in others, and I don't know where the line is.
Let's drill into that. But I want to know, like, what's the fourth thing? But let's come
back. The fourth thing, which is the salt in the wound. I've never had salt in a wound, but I've heard that it's gnarly. But in terms of Giacomo, is if points 1, 2, 3 weren't bad enough, right? It was the point number 4 is that he wasn't only miming it, he was recording everything slowed down because he technically can't play the line. He can't play the line.
And this is where I have to also admit I'm shocked about that. Right? That never occurred to me to do that, actually. It might sound stupid, but it never occurred to me to teach a jazz solo that I couldn't play and then record at half speed and mime it. That sounds like it never even occurred to me. I would then think, okay, let's practice more until I can play it. Now, I have to agree that it actually sounds pretty smart. Just record it slower. Now, I think if you do it with an acoustic instrument, though, lots of stuff there might give it away. Your vibrato will all of a sudden be much faster. I don't know. I think, this never occurred to me to do. But now that I think of it, I think that would have been smart, because there were things that were very difficult for me to record, and I had to work on that. And I could have saved myself some time by just recording that bar like half speed or something, or a little, like 75% of the speed. But yeah, I've never done that. I mean, that's just a thing I say. You don't have to believe me, but even if I would be doing that, right? Even let's say I would do that, then I would make sure that if I perform something like it, that I would be able to do it then. Or maybe I would do it to cut time or something, but I don't think I would be able to do that. I don't think I could look at myself in a video and then realizing, oh, yeah, I recorded that 75% of speed. Now, what I have done, and many other people have done as well, is record something on the album, and then you listen and say, this is too slow. This sounds off. This whole piece is too slow, right? And then you have two options. You can either record it again, but maybe you had a really great take, or maybe some of the musicians went home, or say, you know what, can we speed it up like 10%? And then you usually choose that. That happened. Let me think. There's an album I made, and we played. I think we played like a tongue arrangement of Flight to Bumblebee, and we recorded it, and it was very difficult to record. And again, we recorded it in the same way that I was saying, like you repair stuff. And then we listened back, like, but this is a little bit too slow. Not a lot, but a little bit. It felt good when we played it. And I think we made it like 5% faster. And it just sounded a little bit better, you know. Would we be able to play it 5% faster? For sure. We would be able to play it 10% faster. Just we made the wrong choice while recording it. Funny thing is, I was accused of miming several times when I didn't mime at all in the chat. Someone says, yeah, that happened to me as well. When I was playing live. Some people think that, but I would not even mind it. To say, well, okay, maybe it's mimed, but you know, for me that doesn't have a problem. If I'm able to play it, then yeah, well, you can say that. Does it still sound good? Then okay, but what's the problem? Especially when I use a front camera, maybe because of slower frame rate, people think by default things are mimed if they feel different to the eye. Okay, yeah, could be. I assume everything is mimed. Unless it's really live playing, right? So when people are playing live, it's in a live location or it's a stream, right? Then I assume it's not mimed. I wouldn't even know how to. Let's say I play like now, like this. How am I gonna mime like talking and then playing? Like then, yeah, maybe it could be. No, it's a live stream, so I don't think you could mime that, you know. But every video that is produced in some way could also be mimed. And do I mind? No, I don't mind.
Lines. Those lines he was miming to, okay, he's not a good enough player to play them. So
That's
what
bad.
he was doing specifically to get into the technical, you know, the technicalities of this is he would put on a click, he's going to play the solo.
He's gonna do Donna Lee nice and slow, take some break.
But not that. Let's say you do Donna Lee like that. You play it like. I mean, that's really slow. How are you gonna? If you make it twice as fast, then you're gonna hear that, right? That's kind of sounds so different. At least you have to play it at 80% or something. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the algorithm for that has become so good that you can speed it up speed it up twice, and you don't hear it. But that sounds odd to me that you'll be able to do that.
Yeah, instead of, you know, he's going to play it nice and slow, then he's going to edit the living death out of it, so everything is quantized to the max. Then
Okay, so editing is another thing. I think they'll talk about it more. Okay, I watched the video more or less until this part, I think. Let's see how far are we? Yeah, 40 minutes. I think I watched about like between 15 and 20 minutes. But editing is another thing that is very normal in music. Right? You record something and you say, "Oh, that sounds." Even if it's an improvised solo, you say, "Can you play that little phrase that you played there again?" And you say, "Okay, let me listen to it." What I was playing, okay, yeah, I'll play it. And then you sit down and they play your solo back to you, and then you have to remember where you played it, and you hear like, you play. So was this good? And then one more time, right? And they play it again, and you do. And so that was perfect. And then they take that little thing and they put it in. It's called repairing. And it's very normal. This has been done for centuries, for decades. And everybody has done it. The best players that you know have done this. So, and it used to be very complicated because they would have to do it on tape, and then you have to cut the tape and stuff like that. But nowadays it's so easy to do that. And here's the thing. You could make a choice to not do it. But my promise is that you'll be so annoyed by that little mistake that you cannot even listen to it yourself anymore. And and every time you hear it, you have the feeling you have to start talking at that point where you make a little mistake. So it's better to just repair it. Then it's gone. Or let's say you make a recording and it sounds great, but the only thing is there's one point where the bass and the drummer are really out of sync, like one beat. And it sounds like klik instead of tuk. And it ruins that whole moment. Now what you do is, because you put the bass in another room, so it's soundproof, you go into your editing program, you look at that, who's wrong here, and you pick up that note and you shift it until it's in time. Why wouldn't you do it? You'd be crazy not to do it. Of course you're going to do it.
Then he's going to speed it up.
That's the reason why you put the bass in a separate soundproof booth. It's because you can do it then.
And then he's going to mime along with it.
And learn how to make it look as if
he was good at making it look
he was
like
very
it
good
as well.
because
I fell a lot of effort.
Yeah.
He should have just, you know what I mean? Like focused.
Well, so so the fourth thing.
That's it. That's how you did it. You were miming when we jammed on acoustic. How did you do it? That's one reason I prefer all acoustic jams. No tricks are possible. Yeah, it's because I have a microphone here. I have a little MP3 player. Or a little, very small, And then I just have to put the tempo. No, it has beat detection, so it knows what tempo. And then when I start my solo, I have to, with my knee, I can activate, and then I mime the solo.
Is heavy editing. Heavy editing due to the lack of skill. Correct?
Heavy editing due to the lack. Yes, exactly that.
Yes.
Rick Beato did the biggest mic drop the other day when he talked about it. And for context, the way I see this is that like Rick Beato has the biggest music platform in the world.
Yep.
It's like a talk show for the best players that ever did it.
Yeah.
He's had the greats on, Sting, you know, like all of them, Brad Meldau. I don't know why Brad Meldau came to mind. Andy Summers, like Dave Gilmour from Pink Floyd, like all of the greats.
Yeah, of course.
On his show. So he gets these incredible players on, right? And in his video, go watch it if you haven't seen it, he gets Giacomo on to do, because why? Because to my earlier point, Giacomo is this phenom
player, right?
He's the guitar hero of the moment, right? He's the next generation guitar hero. He sits down with Rick to do the interview, and Rick's looking across. I'm sure that Rick was sat there looking across like he does. Beautiful grey hair, by the way. Looking across. Truly. God damn.
Yes, I know.
I love that hair. He's looking over. I love you, Rick. He's looking over at Giacomo and then realizes as he's sitting there interviewing him that Giacomo can't play.
Right.
That he's realized it there in the moment.
Yeah, and we haven't seen that video.
And I find odd because I assume Giacomo. I'm sure that Giacomo realizes he can't play to the level he's playing in these Instagram videos. Why would you expose yourself to a situation where that's going to be very obvious? There must have been some monetary enticement. Well, maybe not directly from Rick Beato, but from like, okay, if I come there, I can raise my prices or something. But that I find odd. So then you start believing in your own illusion, right? Because he knows, of course, then, okay, I recorded this like 50% the speed. I can't play that. I would then never go to Rick Beato. Or I would never even like join a jam session if I'm not capable of playing the way I say I can play. Then I wouldn't live stream. That's the first thing. And I live stream all the time. If you don't know that, anybody that has bought a book of mine gets access to a special section of my Discord where I live stream all the time, and I play solos in real time, and I answer questions. I show concepts. I would never do that if I had some kind of image to maintain where I would be this great jazz guitar player, but I actually cannot improvise for real. That'd be terrible. And I don't understand why Giacomo did that. Because it's not only Rick Beato, but it's also on them, where you hear him play with terrible sound and terrible timing, and the licks are not nice. There's no flow. why would you expose yourself to that situation, right? Don't you realize people are going to film that, put it on YouTube? Man, that's weird.
It'd be amazing to see that video, but it may be like Rick asked him to do something.
Dude, can you
right?
imagine what that would have been like back in the day? Imagine if it was like Rick sat there with Steve Vai.
Yeah.
And he's like sat there and like, and then in the moment realizes he's like,
this dude is
shit,
just a fake.
This is fake.
Yeah.
This is all, that must have been wild. Wild.
I mean, so I was actually like on a walk with my wife and I was talking to her about this today and she was like, what? That's so much work.
Yeah.
She's like, why would somebody go through that amount of work? And I said, well, big numbers on social media.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Money.
Yeah.
Free gear. Artist endorsements, right?
Yeah, all of that. But also to go one step beyond that, when you're producing a recording, and I think producing a recording, it is becoming less and less of a thing. It still happens, of course, but I mean, many people make a YouTube video or Instagram video, and it's just as valuable. And in fact, I think just sending a recording to a booker is not enough. They're going to check YouTube, right? You want to produce something there that you won't be ashamed of in 10 years. So you're going to edit out all the mistakes. I would expect that. And I've done that for myself and for many other people. Because I'm also a recording engineer. I've worked in the studio for a long time. That's what you do. That's what you do with vocals. Like, why all vocals sound perfect nowadays? That's because it's tuned. Right, first of all, and it's comped, like I explained earlier. Now, the trick here is not to overdo it. Don't tune it like it sounds like perfect tuning. What you do is you tune notes that are so out of tune that it ruins the track. And then the rest you leave. That makes it sound natural. And you not only do it with vocals, but the violin player, it's not going to happen that the violin player is playing every note in tune. It's just not the way that violin works. It's impossible. So you take a good take, you repair some stuff, and then maybe there's one note that's a little bit too low and it kind of ruins that line. Then you take a tuning plugin and you tune that little note. Completely normal. And it's not too much work. That work is worth it because this recording will be forever, right? In 50 years, if it's a good recording, people will still listen to it. And you don't want 50 years people say, it's a good recording, but too bad the violins are like out of tune there at like minute 2:30. People will be reacting that on their YouTube videos, like listen to 2:30, like it's highlighted in blue. You can click it and you can immediately hear the out of tune note. You want to avoid that situation, so of course you're going to tune that note. So it's not too much work. That work is expected and worth it.
Right, that you are incentive.
So that's not the bad thing, right? The bad thing here is, as we already concluded, or as I concluded, is not that you do that, is that you cannot actually do it live. That live, you are a fraud. That's the bad thing.
Advised to grow a platform, right?
Yeah.
But I remember when I first discovered this, I watched the Danny Sapko video, I was like, man, it has never occurred to me to like record something perfectly in slowing it down and editing and getting it all right, and then learn how to make it look as if, to me, that
here I start doubting, did it never occur? Because of course, I'm assuming he has been in recording sessions and stuff has been repaired. He was there when they repaired his track or repaired another track. He was sitting, listening, saying, that's a little mistake, we should repair that. And for me, the only thing here, like from the things he said, was recording it slower. That, I think, is one step too far, because that's something that you actually cannot do live then. I think you should keep it to things you can do live. Or maybe you're not a live performer and you just make productions for people to listen to. Even Giacomo Tura could do it. I would have no problem. But then don't go out and play live, because that would be such a massive disappointment. People will be paying to see you play, and they expect something that they saw on Instagram, and then you are not even half of that skill. That's the bad thing here. I don't think producing that video itself is the bad thing. For me, at least.
That just seems like such an insane insane process. But I mean, I've worked on my bass.
Oh,
Hey,
here
dude,
we go.
man. But it looks like it works out because you'll get 800,000 followers.
Yeah, right, I know, right.
And there's the problem.
Well, that also, I think, is not really true because there's probably tons of people that have repaired their stuff. Even the people that Giacomo Tura used as his examples, right, where he stole solos. I assume some of that stuff has also been repaired, and they didn't get that famous. So it's not only that; it's also luck. It's the visuals of the videos. He was in light locations. He was there somewhere outside in the park, and everybody was having fun, and everybody looked good, and the tracks were slick and stuff. So it's not only the perfect playing the perfect sounding tracks that made it popular. It's a lot of things.
There's the problem right there. Like nothing good downstream. I said this yesterday. Nothing good downstream comes from this. Like, look at what happened. Somebody just became the new guitar hero, and they couldn't freaking play what what people thought they were playing. That is outrageous. And the downstream effects of that are...
Yeah, again, I think the outrageous part is that he actually went out and played live and sucked. That's the outrageous part, because there's many recordings that have been produced in the history with famous bands, and they were not able to play it live. I'm not going to mention the names, but these are bands that we all know. And listen to the recording and then go check it out live, and you'll be shocked on how bad it is, how out of tune it is. So it's not like this is a new thing, right? This has been happening with the biggest names you can think of. Well, famous example from the 80s, like Milli Vanilli, that nobody could sing there. But how about, what's the name of that group? Like Rasputin, they made this track Rasputin. I forgot the name, but the male voice there, he was a dancer. He was not the voice that you heard in recording. The voice you heard in recording was a German producer. He was do the voice, but yeah, he wasn't a good at performing, or he wasn't. No, I don't know. No, Rasputin was not Frank Fabian. No, it was. I'll look it up. Because I have to say the right name. Oh yeah, Boney M. But maybe was the guy called Frank Fabian? That's probably. But the group is called Boney M. And the male vocal in Boney M, the guy that was on stage was a dancer, and the producer, the German producer, was actually the voice there. So. This is a thing that's happening forever. Once a jazz piano player that I played with, he told me an experience that he was recording in a studio somewhere in Scandinavia, in a famous studio, and at the same time, another famous group, very famous music group, was recording their album, and they recorded the whole jazz album in a week. And that other group only, I'm not sure if it's a joke, but I could imagine it's true. They only recorded, Boney M, that's it, but I always said it. They only recorded, he said, they only recorded the satis from the word satisfaction. That's the only thing they recorded in that week. Getting it perfect with the perfect synths and the perfect beat. It was not the Rolling Stones, right? But another group. He mentioned the group. And we were laughing about it. But when you think about it, it's probably more normal than you think. Because if you listen to all of these recordings, it sounds so perfect and everything is produced so... Yeah, perfect is the right word. There's not a better word for it. So perfectly that, obviously they wouldn't be able to do that live. In fact, some of the live performances of these groups are really terrible. Like really terrible. So they would be better off just miming it on stage even. Frank Fabian was behind both. Okay. Frank Fabian was the producer, the German producer. Okay. Milli Vanilli and Boney M. Really? Both even? Okay. There you go. Now, I think it's actually a lot of fun to watch Boney M perform. I mean, it's very energetic, so I don't mind. I went to a Dolly Parton concert in Berlin. I drove all the way there because I'm a big Dolly Parton fan, and she was doing 50% miming, 50% singing live. It was very obvious to me. Did I mind? No, I didn't mind because she was old. She's old, and the most intimate things and impressive things she still sang live. But some of the things she had to dance, and she would grab the violin, she would grab the guitar. There's no way for her to then also sing that live that she would mind that. Now, I'm sure a lot of people in the audience didn't realize that. I realized it. Did I mind? I didn't mind at all. In fact, when that happened, I was like, yeah, I should have realized, of course, it's going to be like this. I still loved seeing Dolly Parton perform live because I've never seen it before, and at least I've seen it now. I've seen her right in front of me singing. Yeah, I don't mind. It's more normal than you think. And a lot of it is because, well, not with Dolly Parton, but a lot of it, but with Boney M, it's because there is no real vocal skills there. So you have to do it that way. But the visuals are also important. Let's say you have the greatest singer, but he moves like greatest singer on recordings, but he moves very badly, or he's just a rude person, or he doesn't want to perform. So what do you have to do then? What are you going to do then when people want to see it live? Well, then you have to mime it live.
Other people will do that as well. Or there is a danger of it. There's a danger.
Let's hang out in number 4 for a minute with this heavy editing to account for the lack of skill. Because there's this thing that Neely talks about, which I love, called the spectrum of permissibility. And in different genres, there's different categories, or there's different criteria for what's allowed.
I saw that.
It's so cool. And so just to give you an example, hip hop, for instance, you may not use someone else's lyrics. You can't take a verse from Common and recite that or put it on your record unless you're sort of making a commentary about his verse, right? Same thing in stand-up comedy. You can't take somebody else's routine and deliver it, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. Unless you say, well, this is a joke. This is the greatest joke I heard from, George Carlin. Remember George Carlin telling this joke? Well, then you could do it, of course. It's not so much about stealing the joke as much as, it is about stealing the joke. You have to credit the person that invented it. You have to credit the creative mind behind it.
A big no. And in jazz, you must.
You can. In fact, if you can't play the other people's tunes, if you can't do the standards, shame on you.
Right. Like you just played Donna Lee.
Yeah.
But you see, I agree with what they're saying, but I think this is a different situation. In hip hop, when you are the person delivering the bars, as they call it, right, the lyrics, you are expected to have created that part of it also. You're expected to do it because that's what the music is, right? There's no, unless you're freestyling, I guess, then I think there's maybe less rules, right? You improvising with words, and if you then grab a line from someone else, like one line that rhymes with the line that you came up with, I guess that's not a problem. But in jazz, that part of it, like the tune you're playing, is not even the interesting part of it. The interesting part is the solo. It's not the tune itself. You're not expected to create it. So yeah, it's about permissibility, but it's also what the style is, of course. It's like, where is the skill in this style? The skill in the hip hop genre is coming up with the verses and then performing them, but the skill of jazz is not actually coming up with the tune. That's not what the important part of jazz is, or the interesting part. The interesting part is what you do in the solo. What lines are you going to play on the harmonies of the tune?
That is what you have to do. You have to ingest the vocabulary, the language, the actual lines of these genres, and be able to spit them out. But what's well,
are they talking about the theme now? If you play the theme with Donna Lee, of course you have to kind of be able to play that theme. But again, it's not the most important thing, because if you have a jazz band, then for instance, maybe the trumpet player and saxophone player are playing Donna Lee, but the piano player is maybe playing chords. But it doesn't mean that the piano player is not playing the tune. He's still playing the tune, right? He's just playing the chords. But what's important is, what is he going to do in his solo? Now, if the piano player doesn't play a solo in the tune, his part also becomes much less interesting. Like a jazz piano player is not going to listen to that recording because there's no piano solo in it. What is important is your solo. And when you play a solo, then the same rules of hip-hop. You're not going to play a solo of someone else unless you credit that person. And there's a specific reason why you do it. It's to tribute. Let's say you play the Charlie Parker solo. It's to pay tribute to Charlie Parker.
It's the what is breaking jazz law, right? What is it? It's writing your solos. It's the inability to improvise. Oh, and then that is where jazz law crushes you, right?
Crushes you.
It's not really true, though. I don't know if they're jazz musicians. Maybe they are. But it's not really true because this has happened also many times in the past. I've witnessed it. And the first time I witnessed it, I have to admit I was a little bit shocked. But then when I thought about it, I was like, okay, why not? So, but let me go a little bit into nuance here, because there's two sides of this coin. So, let me first give the example when the first time I experienced this and I was shocked. I won't mention the artist, just for safety. I don't want to offend anyone. But there was a very famous bass player and a very famous singer. They recorded an album long time ago under both their names. And one of the tunes, they have this trading situation where they trade, just bass and vocals, they trade. There's a whole band, but in that part they trade solo. So 4 bars bass, 4 bars vocals. And it's an amazing moment on that album, amazing moment. So when they came to the Netherlands, I bought the ticket. They came with that project. And it was a great concert. And it was not exactly like the album, that the solos were new, except for that little trading. When they started trading, they played exactly like on the album. And I knew that very well because I listened to it so many times. And I was shocked when that happened. I was like, oh my God, did they write this down? Did they prepare it? Well, there's multiple situations. They could have thought of it before the album, then recorded it that way, and then perform it. That's one option. Second option is that they recorded like that on the album, then they liked it so much, then they decided to play it exactly like that. So they described their own solos and play it like that. That's option number 2. Option number 3 is that it was competent in the studio, so they did multiple takes, then came up with a nice final track by puzzling together little pieces, and then performing it like that. And option number 4 is that they improvised it, and then started performing it, and then somebody said, oh yeah, I remember how I started, and they do it, and then they grow into the way they played it on the recording, and they decide to keep it like that. Doesn't matter how they did it. It still sounded great during the live performance. Let's say I wouldn't have heard the recording, then I would have been blown away by it. So, although I was shocked at the moment, in retrospect, I was like, yeah, it was still musically satisfying moment. And just because of my preconceptions of, okay, it's jazz, you have to improvise everything, was I shocked? Now, it was not like they stole this sort of from someone else, right? They still created it in the moment, at least I assume. Here's the thing, though. I think you still should be able to improvise a jazz solo. So that's the same thing as like when you mime something. I don't think it's a problem. But if you start going out playing live, you should be able to play for real. So when you create a jazz solo, when you pre-compose a jazz solo, and you record it that way, and even if you play it live, I don't mind. But if you go to the jam session afterwards and you are not able to play a single jazz solo, now it's a bit of a problem, because now you're actually not a jazz musician. You are kind of a classical musician and can still have a lot of value, but you're not a jazz musician. And I think there's no jazz musician that would disagree with the fact that if you cannot improvise a solo, then you're not a jazz musician, because that's an inherent part of being a jazz musician, is that you can jam standards, right? And then you can have fun and create something in the moment. It's a very important part. But I don't think there's any law or taboo against pre-composing a solo sometimes. It has been done many times by the greatest people. I don't want to mention their names, but people that you all know, and go listen to different recordings and they play the same solo. Does it make the solo worse? No. In fact, probably it's going to make the solo better because they played it so many times that they start discovering little things they can improve, like a classical musician. But these people, when you play with them in a jam session, they can improvise a solo just as great as that pre-composed solo. They just like to play that solo in live situations. For me, it's not a problem.
So if we take this thing for musos, I might call this muso law, right? So like, let's say we're making a record or we're making content. There's a spectrum of permissibility in terms of editing. Is EQ okay? Yes, we've all decided that it is. Is compression okay?
Of course.
Sure. Is some distortion okay? Yes. Well, let's talk about pitch correction for vocals. It starts to get a little murkier, but it's universally accepted.
No, that's accepted and has been accepted for a long, long time. And even before autotune, they a lot of the time they put a spring reverb. Also on violins, like on long legato sounds. If you put a spring reverb very softly with a very long tail, it has the illusion of making things sound more in tune. That was one way of getting it more in tune, Like everything you could do to make it sound better, it's all permissible.
It's almost on every single record.
Unfortunately, it is.
It is. I mean, we've all just sort of swallowed it. What about beat correction? What about beat?
It's not about if pitch correction is used. Yes, no, because yes, it will be used. I don't want to say 100%, but 99 point something percent of commercially available recordings, it's tuned. It's about how it is tuned. And even there's different tastes. Like if you techno, it's tuned until everything sounds completely in tune. And that's accepted in that music. People are used to it. But if you tune a jazz vocal, you have to be more careful with it. Because you never want to make it sound unnatural. But in some music styles, they actually want to have this unnatural sound. So that's just part of the style. But I don't think there's anything bad about tuning vocals or any other instrument.
Detective, like in Pro Tools, making your drums sound perfect. That's sort of accepted. Although it's a little, people still don't quite know what's going on there. But what about quantization and drum machines that are perfectly, so now everything sounds perfect, right? And as we go,
Yes, although there is also now this trend of unquantized beats. So they take a drum machine and they have a perfect beat and then they unquantize it. Flume, I think, is famous for that. So, I mean, editing can go every which way you can think of. Making it more quantized, making it less quantized is not so much about what you do with it. It's if it fits within the musical paradigm that you are operating.
It gets a little spicier until we get to
somebody slowing down, playing something at half speed.
Playing something at half speed so that they can execute it, and stopping and doing as much as you need to, adjusting all the velocities, right? And then and then speeding it back up and saying, okay, there, it's been performed. But I would say this, Scott, that even doing that as a production tool, like let's say you're making a record and you're not a good enough keyboard player to play. Yeah, sure, you're going to slow it down and go do 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 dee do 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 do.
Yeah, or you program it under one press, which has been done. It's called arpeggiator. It's used in all kinds of music, right? You press one key and you get a major arpeggio and 3 octaves. Who cares? But then make sure that if you play live that you use the same arpeggiator. But if you can play it and it sounds like shit, then people are gonna mind. They're gonna object.
But you're not trying to fool the world that you're an amazing keyboard player. Maybe the line to cross is like if you just did that on somebody's record and you're like, I'm not a keyboard player, so I did this. You're admitting you used tools to help you.
Yeah.
But when you put it out as content, you face the world and it's just a video on you demonstrating, playing something, and you're sort of claiming in your content, I'm an expert at this. is that where it crosses the line?
I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so because, and this again has been done for decades. It can still be an enjoyable product. It's more about, like in his case, Giacomo Turda, about not crediting the people that have done it, but it's also about pretending like you can do it and then go out play live and suck. You know, that is bad.
Not sure. And I think that, and to even make it more complicated, I think that line moves for different people.
Yeah, it does.
You know what I mean? Like some people...
It absolutely does.
Yeah, some people... I will say that... So I'll give you an example, right? So I am very... Not pro-live music. I'm like, that's what turns me on. When I hear a band playing live, like that sound, that energy, that's what really speaks to me. So I'm sort of like on that spectrum. I don't want the freaking quantized drums. I actually want it to sound raw and like kind of like just nasty and just like in the moment.
Yeah.
But that's just me. Right? Some other individuals might want it like the opposite. They want it's so freaking polished, you can bet.
Well, this has more to do with the way you produce it. Right? If it's a live concert, then it's also accepted that it sounds like it's a live concert. So if you're a good musician and you make some tiny mistakes, of course, if it's terrible out of tune, and like then that we don't even talk about that. Let's say a good band. Let's say the difference between the live album of McCoy Tyner with Michael Brecker and the studio recording. Both great. But yeah, the live album, there's maybe some rhythmical problems sometimes, not a lot, but it's not like a studio recording. But if you make a studio recording with that sound and then start doing that, I don't think you would sell as much of the album because that's not the aesthetics. The aesthetics of a recording like that is that it's almost perfect, and you can even take that to recordings that are existing. If you go back to like the Rudy van Gelder albums, recorded with the greats. There's some albums of great jazz musicians, and that when you listen to it, even though they're great musicians, you think, it's too bad that they didn't fix that. Like, and it already starts with some of the instruments don't sound as good as possible, just because there were not the tools right to have the right EQ, or the guitar amp sucked and the microphone sucked. So it already starts there. But sometimes also there's some weird stuff. For instance, there's a recording of Django playing Tears, and so the Tears goes like this: 3, 4. That's a chord, right? So it's C minor, and then C minor with E flat and bass, and then D half diminished, G7. The ending goes like this. They go to D flat 7. It's like the most wrong thing you could play there is a D. But Django forgets on the recording that it goes to D half diminished. So he plays. And the band plays. So he plays it very short, then he realizes his mistake, and he plays a D flat 7. Now on the original recording, the sound quality is so bad that you might miss it. So you can still hear it if you know it. But on the remastered recording, this is very loud, right? I'm sure that if Django would record it nowadays, he would fix that, because the rest of the recording is wonderful. They'll say, okay, let me fix that chord and play the right chord. Is that a problem that he did that? No, of course not. Now, if it's a live concert, you cannot fix that, but then it's also less of a problem. Because it's live and it's funny, he forgot the ending, you know? But on the studio recording, it's odd to hear that. It's also funny, but I bet Django didn't find it funny. But they chose the recording anyway because the solos are so good.
Barely even look at it; it's so shiny. You know what I mean? Just like everything, everything, and that for me, just it kind of turns me off. I don't like that so much. So that line moves, but where the line, in terms of slowing things down. That's where, and maybe that's for some people. Maybe that's okay.
It's okay for me, sure. As long as you
like maybe they think that. I don't think that's okay, but maybe they actually think. Like I don't know whether
absolutely.
It would be really interesting to actually know. Did I'm not going to just make it about Giacomo because other people do it.
If you keep it within reasonable bounds, I mean, I've seen some musicians that it's so fast, ridiculously fast, and also the movements look unnatural. That's probably sped up. Although who knows? But as long as you don't go out and also try to do it live and then suck, or pretend. Let's say if somebody's if you start lying about what you did, like say no, I can do that, then I mean that's a kind of a problem, because now you're pretending to be able to do something that you can't, right? Like if you have a magician and he vanishes like a coin or something, right? I don't think there's any magicians that would say, I really vanished the coin. It's gone. There's no more atoms of the coin. It's out of this universe. It's a magic trick. But the magic trick can be very enjoyable to watch. So if you watch somebody do something impossible and it's like a magic trick, I don't mind. But as soon as you start pretending like it's real, then I think I would have a problem with that. I love that stuff though. The mistakes are part of it, and the mastery is in the quick corrections. Some of Django's most interesting lines maybe start out as mistakes. Yeah, but I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about like these little mistakes. I'm talking about really doing that while it should be a D flat. That is not something, and I know that you know that. And that's not something that Django would actually think is funny, or he was probably really upset that he made that mistake, right? So we can still love it though, because it's Django. It's like, listen, he's still a human. But at that moment that he recorded it, he was bummed, because what he plays the melody. I think he does something like he stops that note because he's shocked by that moment himself. And there's some other moments like that in Django recordings. Very rare, by the way. So yeah, we love it now because Django is like, it's funny, but we also don't listen to that because it's such a great moment. We listen to it, or we play it for someone else because it's funny. Because it's funny that a genius like that can make a mistake like that. Like, it brings him closer to us, like to us mortals. Like, you see, Django making a mistake as well. But it's not because it has musical value. Not in the sense that I think you mean, like some kind of magical moment. But correct me if I'm wrong.
Of course, yes.
Did Giacomo think
that was just fine?
It was fine?
Yeah.
Like, not the stealing bit. We all know that he didn't think that was fine. Come on.
Right. Yeah.
Right? But this miming and slowing things down, he actually, and others, might think that that's okay.
I think it's okay.
Let me just put my cart out, right? My stall. I don't think it's okay at all. Again, I think that there's no freaking good downstream.
I think it's okay. I think it's okay because the product itself might still be nice. Let's not talk about stealing. Let's talk about you putting out a video of you doing that. I think it's okay. But then don't go out live. Go out live and play. So this is just a bigger concept than just playing half tempo. It's just the whole thing. Like, you sound amazing in these Instagram videos, and you have all these nice like fusion blends and bebop stuff in there, and there's amazing double stops, and then you go out live and you can do any of it. I think that last part is the part that's not okay, because people go out to see you and they expect something like that, and then you cannot do it. That's not okay, right? For me, the other part, it's still enjoyable. I probably still enjoy watching some of the Giacomo Tudor stuff because it's groovy and it sounds great. People have fun in the video. Again, not talking about stealing, that's bad, but just the product itself, probably still enjoyable.
Sort of like effects from this. I think that we end up with like musical heroes who can't freaking play.
What if you're a music
I mean, when you watch a movie and let's say you watch a martial arts movie, right? And the people, they are like flying through the air, and then right, they have this amazing fight, and it's slowed down. Is that a problem? That it was done by wires and visual effects? That's not a problem, right? That's just the way it's being done. The movie is still very enjoyable. Now, it would be a problem if the guy that's doing that on screen claims that he can do that in real life, and then you go to a show and he can't do it at all. That is the problem there. The first thing is not the problem. The product still in itself is still very nice. The problem is the delusional mindset of that actor that thinks he can do it live. Because now people come and pay to see you do that live, and you can't. And you promised you could do it live. Maybe you didn't even promise, but it's kind of assumed that you can do it live because you book yourself a show where you're going to perform some of your most amazing stunts or something.
Producer though, and you're going to play a beat that's going to be on a record, and you do it and you piece it together. You play the kick first, and then you play the snare, and you piece it together in a DAW. That happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that's okay?
They're not a drummer. If a drummer was doing that, that would sort of like turn me off. I'd be like, come on, are they going to get on the gig and play?
But that's also not really true because, sometimes, for instance, let's keep it to my own music. In gypsy jazz, there's lots of trios, like a rhythm guitar, solo guitar, bass. Now, you can record that, that's fine. But sometimes it's nice to have two rhythm guitars. So you have like a rhythm guitar on the left and the right side. So the rhythm guitar would do another extra take, and then you have two guitars. Bluegrass, the same thing happens. There's this chop of the mandolin on 2 and 4 that if they play live and the mandolin plays solo, obviously there's no chop anymore, so then the violin would do the chop. That works, but nothing sounds as good as the mandolin chop. So in lots of bluegrass recordings, the mandolin is just gonna do an extra track just chopping all the time, even during the mandolin solos. Not always, but it happened in a lot of bluegrass recordings. Obviously, they wouldn't be able to do that live, that part of it, right? Or maybe a drummer is recording an extra cowbell or something. But it's not a problem that they did that. It's more about the skill that you do have when you play live. It still has to sound good. You still have to be able to be functional in the tune. If you're not functional anymore, and there is, unfortunately, videos of Giacomo Turra playing, and it doesn't sound even close to the level of the Instagram recordings, I think that is bad. But you're also kind of stupid to expose yourself to that situation. Now, I can also imagine that he didn't want to do it, but because he got those sponsor deals, right? Some brands gave him a guitar, and they expected him to show up at NAMM and play. But you should have taken that sponsor deal, or you should have made very clear, okay, but I'm just going to do Instagram videos. I will never perform live, right? Maybe one thing led to another thing, and he found himself in a situation where, unfortunately, he had to play live and got exposed that way. But you should never expose yourself to the situation. Now, I love playing live. Am I a perfect player live? No, but I know I can play, right? I have full confidence in my abilities, both on guitar and violin, even double bass. I play live any day with anyone, and I know my level is good enough to do that. It's not to the level of a Borelli or something, or Django, but I also never pretended to be. Like, it's not like I'm playing Borelli solos every week, record at 70% speed, and then go out live and say I'm going to do a concert of Borelli solos and then suck at it. I would never do that.
Can they play it?
I will say, for me, I don't care unless that person is trying to trick me that they're an expert.
Yes.
Got it.
Like, if somebody
agree with
said,
that,
like,
you know.
I think if
like
Giacomo,
the videos, like, just to use that, like him for an example, the videos, like, everything looks super effortless. Hey, how you? Sorry.
and just
That's true. That's true. That's also I knew it was mine.
How you doing?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
Going
yeah.
around to every single instrument in the room, right? Grabbing the bass. The bass, by the way, do you know the bass was all VSTs? So
I
the
didn't know
bass
that.
wasn't even actually him playing the bass.
So a VST is a plugin. So the bass, he's saying the bass was not even a real bass. The bass were all plugins. I didn't know that, but I do know that there's great sample plugins for bass, right? So because my backing tracks that I make, a lot of people have asked me who's playing bass there, even though I can hear it's not real. It's like, it's not real, man. It's like MIDI. I just play the bass on the keyboard, or sometimes I just actually program the bass in with my keyboard, just my normal keyboard with letters, and then. But yeah, it sounds pretty good, right? But it's not real. So bass is probably pretty easy to fake that way.
It was plugins, and then he mimed it on the bass. Now, here's the thing. I don't actually care about that stuff
just let
on
me just
a record.
interject, though, dude. It's not just him.
Oh, no,
just
I know.
let me say it, because I think that everybody's focused on Giacomo, but it's
right.
Yeah, the stealing thing, but it's not just him.
No,
I know. There's tons of, and let's come back to miming. But I will say, for me, I'll plant the flag of like, if that stuff is done as a production tool to make an album, and it's not to prop someone up as a musician expert, I'm fine with it. I don't care. It's funny. My wife too was like,
and you should be fine with it, just for the reason that it has been done so many times, and everybody has listened to many recordings that have been made like this. And you like it. You like the product there. I don't want to mention any names, but so many examples.
Well, this guy, like, who cares, like, that he did that? And I'm like, well,
what do you mean, Emily? Everybody cares.
I'm like, musos care. You know who cares? It's people that feel like they've done the work. I've seen the strongest reactions from super musos that feel like they've done the work and they're not rewarded similarly. And I understand that.
It's unfortunate, but there's probably many reasons for it. Not to like victim blame or something, but I mean, maybe these people don't want to make a video every week, or record these tracks and then get a band together, get to be an expert in editing or in filming and color correction and building up a Instagram channel. You know, that also takes a lot of effort. So again, let's not talk about the stealing, which is very bad, and everything that happened to Giacomo is probably deserved because of that. But all the other stuff, making the track, editing the track, making the videos, marketing the videos, getting the band together, it's a lot of work. And I know, because I'm alone. But even for me, when I made a video every week, like a highly produced video, it was so much work. And I'm not even talking about the playing. I'm just talking about the post-production, the mixing, making the video, editing the images, color correcting the images, uploading it to YouTube, making the descriptions, trying to get something going with the algorithm. No, that's why I stopped doing it. I couldn't take it anymore. It was too much work for me. I just want to play, I always want to have fun and learn new vocabulary, right? So, yeah.
Or that somebody has been rewarded. If everybody was sitting and with like 2,000 followers.
Thank you, yes.
But what they're doing is they're looking at, it's not that they haven't got 800,000 followers. Yes. It's that they're looking and they're like, what is going on? I'm like, literally,
you're correct.
I've got like 2 decades.
Okay, so I'm already live for 1 hour and 46 minutes. Let me see what the chapters are here. Music as production phase fakery. We talked about it many times now. It's okay if you. Is it okay if you can play it but don't? Okay, let's see. Let's go there. Let's skip some part.
The Pops, Soul Train, in many cases in the U.S., there's a ton of shows that are fully just mimed.
Yeah,
is that cool?
No, dude, it's lame.
Well, wait, is it? I agree with you that it's lame. I know what you mean. It doesn't feel.
So I agree, it's lame. Although, no, I just gave the example of The Departed. I still enjoyed it a lot. Yeah, this is difficult. I have to think about that. Let's see what they say about it.
Feel as good as the real thing, but is it unacceptable? That's the word, actually.
I just think it's freaking lame. Listen, I think that there are.
Yeah, okay. I think I know what I want to say. So I think it's okay for some music genres and not okay for other music genres. I don't think it's okay for a jazz band. If you go see a jazz band live and they're miming everything, that's not okay. Because why are you going to a jazz concert? Is to watch the people improvise. It's just why you go. You go to see the musicians improvise. That's why you go see a jazz concert. At least for me. Right? Keep it to me. When I went to see The Departed, I just went to see The Departed. And I was very happy that she sang a lot of it live. But I was not annoyed at all by the fact that she mimed it. Maybe some people would feel differently. But for me, it was just for me to see The Departed once. I just wanted to see somebody that I was listening to for years on recordings. In fact, my parents went to see Bob Dylan, and they told me it was terrible. It was live, but he really couldn't sing anymore. Probably would have been better if he mimed it. And I don't think my parents would have minded, because it was still Bob Dylan that they saw there. It was just Bob Dylan sitting right there. So I think in some situations you're probably better off miming. But for other music styles, like a classical concert, you can mime that, because you're going out to see this person play this very difficult concerto live, right? And you want to see decisions that they make live. But for other music styles, it's not about the decisions, it's about the show, right? If you go see, I'm trying to think of a great dancer. I think of somebody that's famous for their dancing, but also sings at the same time. Oh, let's say that's fictional artist X. No, not X. Let's not take the letter X. Fictional artist Y. So fictional artist Y is a very famous, has hits, and it's not only famous for the singing, but it's also famous for the choreographed dancing and the moves. Right now, it's very difficult to make all those moves and keep singing in tune that get out of breath. Why are going people to see that show? It's probably not to hear them sing live; it's to see them dance live. So probably better off miming anyway, then, in that sense, right? So it's more about the expectation of people, or the expectation of that style. I think if you go see a hip hop concert, I think you want to hear those people rap live. You want to hear them flow live. You want to hear those bars live. You want them to be able to ad-lib, right? To freestyle in the moment, to say stuff to the audience. So it depends on the style and the music genre. So that's that spectrum of permissibility, I think.
Again, this is a line that is not sort of like in cement. It's like a piece of string, and people can move it around where they want. And they, you know what I mean? Like for some people, they don't mind. For me, I'm just talking like from my perspective, I can absolutely, of course, understand why certain things on TV is mimed because of because of the production process.
Yes.
They might not have what they need to be able to do it, or the budget to be able to.
Usually on television, you don't have what you need, because there's not even time for a sound check, right? So you're better off miming.
Do it,
of course.
All of those things, right? It might need to be absolutely perfect, and there is zero wiggle room for any.
I remember a tango group that I played with many of the musicians, and they had to play on television. I wasn't there, but I had similar things. But they had to play a piece with piano, and when they got to the studio, there was no piano. So they had to mime it, but then they still had the problem that there was no piano. So in the end, they took a little cupboard, like a brown cupboard, and the piano player would just sit behind it. They would film it from the backside, and he would just mime the miming. He would just move his hands, but there was no piano there. It was just air. So, okay, this is funny.
Any error, all of those things.
Yeah.
But, and again, just this is me. I just think in general, when it doesn't have to be mimed, if you're miming, it's fucking lame. It's lame.
Amazing.
Yeah, if it doesn't have to be mimed. But what are those reasons? There could be many reasons. Like I said, if you have to dance out of breath, or there's no sound, or, I mean, maybe you feel ill, right? Or maybe you just, I don't know, maybe you're old and you can't do it anymore. But I think if it's jazz or classical music or like bluegrass, where there's improvisation, if there's as soon as there is improvisation, or you go see it because of the way the music can change in the moment, then I don't think it should be mimed.
It's lame. You should be proud to be able to play it, and just to. And if anybody, just let me because I think that this is important context, so you understand where I'm coming from. I used to think it was lame when I was a kid. When I just picked up, maybe even before I'd picked up guitar, there was 2 shows on TV. What was
Well, here's the weird thing. He also admitted earlier that there was many things on Instagram he didn't realize they were mimed, and he didn't mind. He only started minding after he realized it was mimed. It's the same thing that I had with the pre-composed solo. So it's not so much about the product. It's about what it's doing to your expectations or something. And I'm not saying that's a wrong mindset, but I think you should then look to yourself, not so much at that person. It's like, okay, I'm not able to enjoy it because of my own preconceptions, not so much about this product, because you didn't think it was lame or you didn't realize it was mine. So it has nothing to do with the product itself. Right? It has to do with what you want to be shown or something.
called Top of the Pops, and another one was called TFI Friday. Shout out me in the comments if you remember how awesome TFI Friday was. Chris Evans doing his thing, absolute killer. Oh my God, what an era. Anyway, Top of the Pops, TFI Friday. All of the bands on Top of the Pops it was all mimed. And on TFI Friday, it was all live. And I can remember just watching them as a kid, and I just used to think Top of the Pops is just the lamest thing.
Was it live though? I don't know these shows, but I have played in similar things in the Netherlands, and I played in a show where it was supposed to be live. Lots of things was live, but the singer, famous singer, didn't want to sing live. So what did we do then? We mimed that one song. I don't think you can ever be sure about things being live. Not completely sure, right? Sometimes we also had sometimes that we played with a click, and some things would be live and other things wouldn't be live. There's many combinations possible.
It's like,
just like
I used to just start like watching, like people are pretending to play along. Like, what is
so
this?
weird. Yeah,
so this was no musician bullshit. This wasn't me with my musician's ego. This was me as a kid. I was like, this is stupid. Why are they pretending?
Right.
Like pretending to strum along. Like, what is this?
But if it's really good, if you're pretending it to be really, if it's really in sync, you know. I was in an orchestra that would back famous vocalists. We were just like a little group, and we would be on television every week with a string section, if there were strings in the recording, and there would always be a live band, but we never played anything live. It was all mimed, but we would have the scores in front of us, and we would be playing for real. We would be playing real, like, so we would make sound, just not the sound that you heard at home. So, many people assumed it was live, even musicians, because they had a whole live vibe. There was microphones. We were announced live, and then there would be an interview, but the music itself was all mimed. I don't think what he says is the case if you don't know it's mimed. Now, I also know that a lot of the stuff that you saw on these popular shows, the miming was really bad. So it was obvious it was mimed. Yeah, then it's lame. If you're not able to mime it convincingly, then you shouldn't do it.
And then I'd watch the bands on TFI Friday, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah,
I can remember watching like Stereophonics back in the day. I can remember watching Seal live, and his band were just killing. Oh my God.
So cool.
Yeah, and like it was just, and I can remember as a kid thinking it was lame. So the reason why I'm saying it is because I think it's lame now. If it doesn't need to happen, it's lame still.
I'd be willing to bet some money that some of the things that he thought that were live were not live in the end. Just because I've had the experience of doing this myself, where I had to mime in a setting that was supposed to be live.
This is just a personal thing for me. Some people like sushi. I'm not that, I just don't like sushi that much. I'll try to bit of sushi with you, but I just don't like it.
I think you liked it better than you let.
I liked it a little bit. I liked it a little bit. But it's okay for us to have different opinions. But I just think it's lame. And I just want to say, I can remember when it was like Nirvana had released their first album, and there was this sort of like this whole kind of like thing in the UK.
I think that's enough. Let's end the video. Because I think I made my points. I'm not sure if they're valid points, but this is my my thoughts on it, right? So, in the end, like to conclude, I don't mind miming at all. That's just an inherent part of the music industry. Sometimes it's the only way you can produce things. I don't mind editing. I don't even mind heavy editing. Where the problem starts for me is when you go out live and start disappointing everyone because you were pretending to have some kind of skill that you don't have. That is a problem, but not the pretending part. It's a combination of pretending and then going out live and then sucking. Because now you become a kind of fraud, and it's also difficult now maybe to watch you pretending because it's just a faker. I think if you make this product as like a Hollywood movie, right, where you use special effects, let's call it that, it's fine. But don't pretend that you can actually jump 3 meters in the air and then do a somersault kick and then land and land on a horse, right? Don't pretend that you can do that. Don't say that you can do those things, or having these assumptions out there and then let people pay for you for a show and then suck. It's difficult to find this line, but that's for me is the line. So hopefully, I will never do that, and I think so far I haven't done it. I've never played anything on a video, even though it sometimes was edited, that I wouldn't be able to play live. Now, can I play every solo that I ever played now? No, because I forgot them. But technically, I could. Also, stealing solos and claiming you composed them. Yeah, that's bad, of course. But I don't think there would be anyone saying that is good. That is bad. You should never do that. But can you play Smoke on the Water? Well, no, but I've never played... Listen, Andre, I have never played Smoke on the Water on camera. And I never will, because I'd be never able to do that live, So that's what I mean. I will not break that line. Donnelly, I play that on camera, no problem. But Smoke on the Water, no way. I leave that to you. So my argument still stands there. Your Smoke on the Water example is not good. Anyway, that's it. If you watch this on YouTube later, thanks for watching. It was a long video. Even right now, it says I streamed for 2 hours. I'll edit the beginning from the video, which is probably the first 5 minutes where I was just... this stream will start soon. But I'll leave the rest intact. If you watched it until this point, thank you so much. Check out my web store with the books. Link in the description. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye.